Good evening and welcome back to Sports Talk ATL. I am Chase Earl, joined by Alex. Lord, the Falcons are 4-2, coming off 3 straight victories against NFC South opponents. The first time they've been 4-2 since 2016, yet the same problem still persists. And as fans, we have a right to be greedy, right? We have been through a lot of pain as members of the Atlanta Falcons fan, and a lot of that pain comes from the fact that they cannot get after the passer, and it hasn't come back and bit them yet. But 5 sacks in 6 games is not going to get it done, Alex. 25 pressures. I mean, you see guys around the league get like 60 pressures by themselves in a season, and that's like what the Falcons are on pace this season. I mean, it has been absolutely putrid, and you can look towards Lorenzo Carter. You can look at Arnold Ebiketie, who just have offered absolutely nothing. Matthew Judon hasn't lived up to what we thought he was going to be, but what we know now after 6 weeks is this group needs help. And when you look at the rest of the roster, there's not a lot of holes. Why don't they just pour pretty much all of their resources into this problem and go for it while the NFC is wide open?
Yeah, I mean, the old adage of just throw money at a problem, it fits this billing right now. Because, listen, the Falcons are not getting – John Abraham's not walking through the doors of Flowery Branch anytime soon. Like, the Falcons have who they have. There's no free agents. There's nothing available that can just come off the street and help the Falcons right now. I don't know. Maybe John Abraham does have a little left in the thing. I guarantee you maybe give you more than Lorenzo Carter has, who has given you, like you said, virtually nothing opposite of Judon. And Judon's got to be better. Let's get that out of the way. First and foremost, Matthew Judon hasn't lived up to the potential. But putting all your eggs in that Judon 32-year-old basket seems risky, seems unnecessary, really, when you're talking about a Falcons team who has their quarterback of the present and Kirk Cousins. You signed him in free agency, didn't have to give up draft capital. You already got your quarterback of the future in Michael Penix. You only had to spend 1 first-round pick on him. So what are you going to do, hoard all these first-round picks for offensive line? No. You've shown no ability outside of the first round to really draft successfully, at least consistently. There's a couple of blips here and there. Drew Dalman's a bright spot. But for the overwhelming theme of Terry Fontenot's tenure is he sucks at drafting. So you might as well spend those draft picks on a pass rusher. And a lot of Falcons fans were talking – the Hassan Reddick trade news is up. He's looking for a trade. So it's sparking all of these, wild theories that the Raiders are going to trade Max Crosby. And I just did something on the site. Go check it out, sportstalkatl.com. It would be awesome. I mean, Max Crosby is arguably the best pass rusher in football. He's only 27 years old. He's the exact kind of guy that you bring in and can change the entire look of a defense. Myles Garrett, obviously, arguably the best player in football, bar none. Micah Parsons is right there. None of those guys are getting traded. Now, I could squint, close my eyes, and potentially imagine a fairy world where the Raiders are dumb, and they are dumb, and they trade Max Crosby away, and we can hope and pray for that. But, that's not how you win Super Bowls. Hoping and praying is not how you win Super Bowls. The likely outcome is, at best, Hassan Reddick, which would be great. I mean, Hassan Reddick is a guy who can pin his earbacks, unlike Judon, and get and beat tackles consistently, one-on-one and even double teams. He's a guy who can get his own sacks. You don't have to scheme him open, kind of like Judon does. So ideally, that would be the guy. Somebody came out, I think Josina Anderson came out recently and said that there's a stipulation in the Eagles and Jets original trade that if the Jets then trade him back to the NFC, they owe a conditional second-round pick to Philly. So you imagine the Jets, also dumb organization, maybe they screw things up and they do trade him in the NFC and just bite that bullet. I have a hard time believing that. The fact is, rock and a hard place the Falcons find themselves in. There's no obvious solutions other than Hassan Reddick. If you could maybe, sweeten the pot and give him that second-round pick, you're going to have to give Hassan Reddick an extension. And quite frankly, that should be at a premium. The Falcons should send all their picks away and let them sign whatever they want. It's been the longest standing weakness of this Falcons team. It's what's going to hold them back from potentially making a deep postseason run. When was the last time we saw somebody make a deep postseason run being bottom 3 in sacks?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't happen often. I mean, maybe the Atlanta Falcons back in 2016. I mean, I don't know what that team was in sacks. I know they were better in 2017. I know throughout the regular season.
Vic Beasley led the league in sacks.
Yeah. So they actually had some sacks. They were a little bit of fool's gold, as we found out about Vic Beasley. But that was like, I think the 26th ranked defense. So just as a whole, that defense wasn't there. But as we've talked about many times, that was a defense that played better at the end of the season.
Yes.
And I still believe this is a defense that can do that. I think they are going to improve. I think they're going to be better rushing the passer because they frankly can't get worse. Yeah. But I am looking, is this a problem where, listen, maybe you don't get a Hassan Reddick or Max Crosby, and that's kind of the world we're living in. Like, I'd love Hassan Reddick, but the reality is he's not coming to an NFC team. Like, the Falcons aren't going to give up a second-round pick and multiple third-round picks to get Hassan Reddick and then hand him a new contract. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Although they should, because Terry Fontenot has shown no ability to spend second and third-round picks wisely.
Yeah, but they're not going to do that. Terry Fontenot is going to be like, I suck at as a GM, so let me make this bad move. Yeah, like, he's not going to do that. So the reality, but is it a situation, right, where one guy can come in and just bring something off the opposite side of Matthew Judon? Because Lorenzo Carter and Arnold Ebiketie are giving you absolutely nothing. They don't. You could put two Lorenzo Carters out there and he probably wouldn't get pressure on one left tackle. Like, somehow he would get blocked twice. That's how piss poor he is as a pass rusher. So can you just give me a body? I'm not talking about a guy that's going to get 15, 20 sacks, but a body that can get 7 or 8 sacks that you have to worry about. And then as collectively as a whole, because we know Onyemata and Grady Jarrett can get pressure on the interior. They haven't been great at it so far, but we know they can be better. We know Matthew Judon can be schemed up and get pressure and can be better than he has been to this point. But if you add someone to this, I do think it makes the entire group a little bit better than they've basically been, and that might be a competent thing. But yeah, the idea that a 20-sack guy is going to just come in
walk through the doors,
it's not going to happen. But that doesn't change the fact that it does need to be addressed. Like, it has to be addressed in some form or fashion. I don't care if it's one guy. I don't care if it's two guys. Throw crap at a wall and see what sticks. Because frankly, if you're the Falcons, not only is the quarterback position, you think the future of it, but there's not a ton of areas where you're like, wow, that's a clear hole we have to address. Secondary, yes. Pass rush, yes, but the offensive side of the ball, you're pretty damn good for the foreseeable future. And linebacker, you're pretty damn good. And safety, you're pretty damn good. So, like, there's not a ton of stuff you have to worry about the future. This is what you have to worry about now and in the future. You got a chance to really, compete in a very weak NFC that is wide open, wide open it's ever been. You got to go out. You can't waste these chances, right? You can't just punt on these chances. You got to put your best foot forward. And I think they will do it. I don't know who it's going to be, though. And that's the big question.
Yeah, realistically, let's get back down to earth. Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, Max Crosby, every other star pass rusher on a bad team that you think the Falcons have a chance at, they don't have a chance at. It's the most valuable position outside of quarterback. Teams don't just willy-nilly trade Myles Garrett, future Hall of Famer, Max Crosby, well on his way to a Hall of Fame career, Micah Parsons, same thing. Those guys don't get traded unless you're in a bad organization. And that does happen sometimes. Bad things like that do happen. It's not going to happen this time. A guy that, might be available, I did something on him weeks ago, Azeez Ojulari, Georgia boy. I'm sure some of the listeners will love to hear that name. He's on a Giants team that, if you want to talk about a bad team that does have expendable players, that's a Giants team. They're not going to trade Kayvon Thibodeau. They're not going to trade Brian Burns, who they just acquired, or Dexter Lawrence, their premier defensive lineman. They're going to trade a guy who's on an expiring contract, who doesn't have a future in New York. That's Azeez Ojulari. That's the kind of guy that you have to start looking at, not the premier guy that is the face of a franchise. And that can help. Like you mentioned, just getting somebody who literally has a pulse, literally anybody who has a pulse on the other side of Matthew Judon should help. And in that same breath, getting better on first and second down so you're in an advantageous position on third downs will also help. The rush defense has been abysmal. Soft in the middle. The linebackers don't really know. They don't look like they know what they're doing. Obviously, I don't know, the game plans and everything like that. But, getting those things settled will also improve the pass rush. So the realistic solution is little things here and there that is just going to bring it to ideally an average pass rush. Yeah, and that might be wishful thinking.
Yeah, it's tough. It's not going to be an easy solution. There's nothing out there that's just going to walk through the door. I mean, hypothetically, if any of those guys were to realistically be made available, the Falcons should be calling nonstop at them and basically offering their entire allotment, as many first-round picks as they can offer. I mean, that is something, though, like that I will say, because they do happen. You do see a Khalil Mack every once in a while just come out there and be available. If for some reason the Browns or the Raiders, two very bad organizations, organizations have made a ton of questionable decisions. We're like, hey, we're ready. We're ready to end this and completely go into this huge rebuild and get as many draft picks as we possibly can. The Falcons have to be number one at that door, and you don't let them off the phone.
I saw somebody talk about Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, first, a couple second-round picks, a third-round pick, and Tyler Algier. Shut up. You can have Bijan Robinson, 2 first-round picks. I don't understand how people don't realize how valuable somebody like Max Crosby doesn't get the praise he deserves. This guy had 12.5 and 15.5 sacks the past 2 years. He is a top 3 pass rusher in this league, consistently can get his own sacks. He's the kind of locker room. He's the bunker guy that you want next to him on an NFL team. You give him him whatever you want, because Terry Fontenot has shown no ability to use the first-round picks and find a guy like Max Crosby.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize what that would do to this defense. We would be looking at immediately a top 10 unit. I mean, it's just like that kind of thing is so. I mean, just look what TJ Watt did to the Falcons week 1, right? Like that's basically what we're
won
talking
them
about.
The game.
Yeah, I mean that is
because the Steelers offense
that is James Bond. Like that is a guy that goes out there and wins games on the defensive side of the ball, and you're just like, man, we cannot stop this guy. We can throw chips at him. We can throw multiple chips at him. It doesn't matter. We can double team him. He's gonna go out there and make plays. I mean, what that guy, a kind of guy, would do for that. So if hypothetically in this fairy world that we're now living in right now, discussing this, so one of these guys comes available, I mean, it's everything. It is 3
first round picks. Who else do you want? You want Kyle Pitts? Take him. I mean, it literally doesn't matter. I saw somebody reply to that tweet and say, I'm not giving up our 1,000-yard Tyler Algier back. Are you stupid?
Give him Bijan.
Take both of them.
Yeah.
Literally take both of them and go sign somebody off the street. It literally doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's completely ridiculous. But listen, and that's why we're almost saying that it's ridiculous one of these guys would be traded. But if that thing comes up and you have an opportunity, I mean, the Falcons need to basically be like, hey, take whatever you want. Just pick every single player that you want.
Arthur Blank will write a check.
Yeah,
whatever you want.
Yeah,
to your favorite charity.
It's got to happen. And hopefully in our fairy world, it does.